That's 6 right there.
It must be
So they're
8.
8-footers, yeah.
They're 8s.
Take off.
Gotta respond to.
Mr. Falanga emailed me. I thought it was-
How'd the vacuuming go, Jeff?
The what?
The vacuuming.
Yeah,
Wasn't that a vac truck you had sucking out all
Oh,
the
yeah.
storm sewers?
I meant to
Yeah.
email him
Pretty
today,
good.
but I forgot about it.
No complaints about blowing
Let's
up
try to
people's
call
toilet
him.
water this time. So that's a plus.
Yeah.
I don't believe so, they're on. Not that I'm aware of.
We used a different company this time. Because the other one couldn't make it
I
down
could
or
email
something.
him real quick.
Well, we had them scheduled. And 3 days in a row, they called and said, oh, our guy didn't show up, so we can't make it. I said, you know what? This should have been done in August.
Right, right.
So I cut back a day and I got a different company to do it. They charge a little more per day.
I would think that's it. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting. For the Pledge of Allegiance.
Just emailed him, we'll see if he responds.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our October 21st Select Board meeting. And I believe we don't have any visitors here in the audience, and I think we have a good accounting of our visitors on our Zoom platform, on who's here, so we can keep track of it in the minutes. The first item on our agenda is for me to cough. Excuse me. The first item on our agenda is to approve our minutes from our September 25th special Select Board meeting. And I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second it.
Lee Dakin is the motion and Jeff is the second. Any changes, corrections, omissions, errors? Anybody got anything on them?
I didn't see anything.
You're okay with it all? Everybody's okay?
I wasn't able to participate in that meeting, so no comments.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Lee. Next item is to approve our minutes from our October 7th Select Board meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 7th Select Board meeting.
Lee Gustafson's the motion and Lee Dakin is the second. Any corrections, changes, anything on those minutes?
I have none.
I have none.
You okay with them, Lee?
Actually, I do want to make one comment. I appreciate the level of effort that's made in making these minutes readable with the page numbers and the date and the footer and all that. So thank you. I think that's you, Amy, right? So thank you for all the work you're putting into it. Appreciate it.
All those in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
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 And those are gone. One of our board members, Heather, is not with us today. She's feeling a little bit under the weather. We wish her well. I'm sure we all do. Next item on our agenda is citizens' comments. If there's someone that'd like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. So seeing there's no one here in our audience, is there anyone out in our virtual world that would like to address the board?
Yes, this is Ralph Falanga, and I would like to try and get an update on the speed limit change and the speeding issue on Andover Road. Haven't heard anything on that.
Ralph, we are going to cover some of that, excuse me, on our old business, which is coming right up, and we'll have some answers for you hopefully then.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any citizens' comments on anything that is not on tonight's agenda?
Arthur, we have you
Arthur?
on the agenda. You're welcome.
You'll be coming up right after old business regarding the Vermont Elder Justice Project, I believe, right, Arthur?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So one more time, if there's someone else out there that would like to address the board regarding something that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Hearing none, we'll go on to old business. Julie, can you take us through our old business list?
Yes, so with regard to the sound equipment, I had said at the last meeting that that would be installed. They were ready to come, and one of the critical pieces had not shipped in time, so they are delayed. As soon as that comes in, we will get it scheduled. With regard to the public safety building, the concrete work has begun. The whole back wall has been poured. You can't see a lot of it. I did a site visit last week over there behind the big mound of gravel, and then down on in a hole is where all the work is taking place. So there is quite a bit of work taking place now. Catch basins are in. Those are the utilities that were installed. In about a month, mid-November, the steel frame is expected to be up. So that's the point where people will really start noticing some work that's being done over there. Once the steel frame is up, at that point, the building committee will go do a site visit as a group. So things are moving along quite well. They started the final design work on the town garage, getting that ready to proceed with permitting. The initial design was already done. I met with Kevin and Kirby last week. Not really any changes. So they're finalizing design and going to put some final cost to that, and we'll be proceeding with permitting so that building can start first thing in the spring. Speed studies. There's a few people here about the speed studies. So the portable radar sign for Andover Road went up, lasted about 3 days, and died. It's a much older sign. Parts are obsolete. They can't really get it running again. So the speed study has been completed on River Street and High Street. So those detectors have been lifted and are now going to be moved. Regional planning is moving them out to Andover Road. We were hoping to have the radar signs up on Andover Road, but it's just not going to work. So we're going to do it with the strips that regional planning used, and they'll be up for about 2 weeks. For moving to speeding in general, because they're kind of connected, had a conversation with Rick middle of last week. They are increasing, our police officers are increasing their amount of time out, trying to dedicate a certain amount of time on each shift to just running radar. Each officer, each shift, spending an allotted amount of time. It's difficult to do. They get pulled off to calls and that type of stuff. But they're trying very hard to allocate, 1 to 2 hours per person per shift to just radar. And there are some key areas in town, I'm not going to tell you where they are, where they will be focusing some of their efforts. These are some of the areas where people have expressed concerns about speed to you guys, to me, to the police. So they will be out and about working on improved speed control throughout town. And then the wayfinding plan will be on the next agenda. I actually got the revisions in today. So that will be on for your November 4th meeting. And Mr. Falanga, I apologize. I got your email and I meant to respond to you this afternoon and it went right out of my head. So if I haven't answered your questions, I can certainly answer them now or I can email you back tomorrow morning.
No, just send me an email.
Okay.
I don't know if I have phone right now.
Okay, I will do that in the morning. I apologize.
Thank you.
Julie,
Yes?
speaking of the speed, I think in our last meeting, we talked about having a sign at the Main Street end of Church Street. And if our signs, if we don't have enough signs, are we going to be able to do something with that, and also the sign that says no through trucks.
Great, so the no truck signs have been ordered. Everything's taking a little longer to get. The permanent speed radar sign is what is going on Church Street. And I don't think those are in yet.
No.
They have been ordered. The one that died is the portable. But what's going on the Main Street side of Church Street is one of the permanent signs. And we haven't received them yet.
There is a weight limit sign on the Main Street end of Church Street.
Yeah, there's a weight limit sign on both
24,000.
ends, I noticed when I was walking, but we had talked about having one that just said no through trucks.
Right.
And those we've ordered, I believe, from Meccano Sign. Yeah, I got it.
Julie, this is Ginger Roper. I have a question about the speeding.
Go ahead, Ginger.
How is it determined where you put the strips or the radar sign on the road? Do you know that, or is there any? Are there technical or analytical reasons of where you put them?
Go ahead.
You want me to? So I don't think there's any scientific process to it. I think it's where people would be flying down the road. So obviously not too close to the intersection because people would be slowing down, not too close to a corner because people are going to be slowing down. So probably for Andover Road, it's going to be in the middle of that straightaway, is what I would imagine where regional planning would place it.
Yeah, the strips are, you have a little more leeway on where they can go because they register the information as they're hit, but the radar is a little different. It has to have a line of sight on a straightaway to operate properly, and then if it's a permanent radar sign, it becomes a matter of where you can put it on the right-of-way and if there's anything in the way of the radar beam going out there. So there's a little more to worry about, or more stipulations regarding the radar as opposed to the strips.
The reason I asked is I think that there are two trouble spots on the Andover Road between Route 11 and Potash Road where there's a curve. I was going 40 miles an hour the other day and somebody passed me on that straightaway going, I don't know how fast. And then once you round the curve between the Potash and Andover, that's another trouble spot. So I was just hoping that we can capture data, and if not both, one of those trouble spots.
Yeah, those seems like would be the best location for them, and I agree with you as far as those two straightaways being the ones where people accelerate the most and are getting past the limit a lot. And I think that's where they're going to end up on, probably on that straightaway between Potash and Route 11.
Part of the problem is that section between Andover Village and where Chestertown line is, that's 50 miles an hour. Because it's the state maximum speed limit on the secondary roads. That's what it is. So they're doing 50 and they don't want to slow down coming downhill. And that was where the portable radar unit was set up for 3 days.
Where is it 50, Jeff?
The section from Chestertown line till you get to the corner just before going into Andover Village, that's the state speed limit, and that's 50 miles an hour.
But that's in Andover.
So when they
Right.
come into Chester, it all of a sudden is 40 and people aren't
I didn't
capturing
even
that.
realize that the speed limit was 50 between the
No.
Andover Village and the Chestertown line, and then it drops to 40.
I can tell you, I got educated by one of the selectmen when I stopped him for that section there. He told me he knew exactly what the speed limit was.
So maybe we should have a conversation with Andover too, because 50 seems like a ridiculous speed to have in that small section when you got 30 on one side and 40
Well,
on the other side.
that's the state dictates
Right,
that, not
that's,
the town.
I don't
That's
even
the
know if
state.
there's I don't even know if there's a speed sign there, but it's
Yeah.
the basic
Because
state,
there is no speed sign.
Right.
it's 50 miles an hour.
It's 50 because Andover hasn't done
Yeah,
a
hasn't
study to
done
determine
anything.
a lower speed.
But I think it's still worth a conversation with them, because it's all part of that whole area that we're having the trouble with. And maybe just, talk to them about it, because I know when we went to the state with the high school problem that we had, we were able to get that speed limit dropped over there.
Yeah.
So hopefully if Andover would help us out, or, I think it would benefit everybody, because it
Oh,
does
yeah.
drop down to 30 there, that if they went along on their side of it, to get it down to 40 or whatever we end up doing on our side too, so they match the same, to keep it consistent through that whole area.
I
That's
think
amazing.
that would help.
Yeah, that's flying 50, which means, if its speed limit's 50, it means, if they cruise 55 or 60.
Yeah, they're not gonna slow down for the Chestertown line or the 40 sign.
Yeah.
Question, Ginger, you might know this, Mr. Flanagan. It was my understanding that Andover hired either a sheriff or someone from the state police to monitor speed in the town of Andover.
I don't know.
No, they did. I don't know if they still do.
They did have a sheriff up there,
I
but
don't have any knowledge of that.
Okay.
In the past, but I haven't
they
seen it in a
they were
long
under
time.
contract for so many hours a week.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think they are anymore.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well, maybe
Julie?
we could reach out to Andover and explain to them where we're coming from, and hopefully we could work together to try to, address this problem.
Julie, do you know if the radar, not the radar, but the speed strips that were on High Street and Church Street, wherever they were in Chester, are they both being moved up to Andover Road, or just the
I
one?
can certainly ask for them. I had only asked for one, but I have made a note. I will ask if they can
Okay.
both go.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, they're not on River Street anymore.
No, they picked them up. River and High Street are done. I have the reports on those. I just got those today. But I will ask if both strips can be moved to Andover. I know one is, so I will ask for two.
So we're working on it. As we collect the data, then we'll see what our next steps are, and hopefully we could address this problem.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
That's all I have for old business, Ernie.
Any board members have anything on old business?
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Lee?
No, well, what notes did I make? No, I'm okay with it.
Let me just turn off my pocket annoyance. Excuse me, I'm very sorry.
I will say that I did hear some comments after our meeting where we had the scoping study for Church Street. And some of the residents on Church Street were a little disappointed. And, we had our public hearing prior to having all that done. And it made me feel good. And I understand that we have to put it aside for a while, but it's still something I hope in the future we will consider.
Yeah, we have the information to proceed forward at this point, so we've done a lot of the legwork already. So if things change in the future, or our finances are looking a little better, or certain grants come up, we always could bring it out again. And I think it's something, even though it didn't happen this time, we'd be ready for it. And I still think it's a worthy goal to have for the town, to have that sidewalk all the way on that huge loop like that. I think it would be used by a lot of the people. I think it would make the whole area a lot safer. And I think it might even help slow up traffic, because when you see a sidewalk on the side, it just gives you the residential feel to it as opposed to not having it. So I think in a way it almost slows up traffic.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Anything else on old business? All right, next thing on our agenda is a Vermont Elder Justice Program, and Arthur Smith is here. He requested to speak to the board and the general public regarding this project, and I believe it's for senior citizens. And in these times of COVID, it seems like problems with abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation of seniors is on the rise, as a lot of other things too, because of the lockdowns and all the restrictions that we have in our social world and stuff. But Arthur Smith is here to give us an overview of this project and to give us an explanation on it and talk to us about it. And Arthur, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk with you. to address elder abuse in Windsor County. Abuse in later life is a harm with growing numbers during COVID, if you haven't noted. And these growing numbers are consistent with our state's population trends. In the current Vermont State Plan on Aging, the prediction is that by 2030, less than 10 years away, 25% of Vermonters will be over the age of 65. And of course, there are many ways of being over the age of 65, but generally speaking, there are age-related cognitive changes for all in this age cohort, such as slower rates of speech, a decline in finding words, word retrieval, and in fact, there is a decline that begins for everyone at the age of 60. But importantly, aging alone does not affect the reliability of information recall. Despite ageist assumptions that all older adults who seem confused and afraid have cognitive impairments, most older adults do not have dementia. However, the older an individual is, the greater the odds they will have some form of dementia. So assessing capacity is confusing when someone in later life in your community appears to be having difficulty and a neighbor wants to help, or the elder reaches out themselves because they believe that they are being abused. The question is, how can we help? The Department of Justice grant that I'm funded by is helping communities to identify gaps in the support services for those in later life who have been mistreated, and is helping in the development of protocols for collaboration between law enforcement and other community partners to better serve. We have trained boots on the ground first responders to understand what they see and how to question. We've also trained with DOJ money investigators and detectives on how to collect evidence in the areas of financial exploitation, neglect, and abuse. We've asked them as well to conduct a self-assessment, an inventory of their training needs and policies. And one question I would pose to you is, do you know whether or not your law enforcement has completed this self-assessment? It's a very good indication of weaknesses and strengths in your community. Under the grant, we have also trained service providers across the county on state civil and criminal remedies that provide relief to vulnerable adults. But there are gaps in these services that are available, and communities need to brainstorm on how to best respond. Without getting into too many of the gaps, a lot of the domestic violence issues are for intimate partners. The difficulty with APS is they have to be identified as vulnerable adults. The difficulty with first responder police officers, when there's an allegation of financial exploitation, it's very difficult to have the documents necessary. At more fundamental level, a lot of the people who have been harmed by family members, and it's very difficult for them to want to involve law enforcement in a criminal proceeding. So in working with restorative justice, there's a model here that's originating from White River Junction that addresses the heart of this issue, which is to help usually a mom, sometimes a grandma, talk with family members in a guided setting where those harms can be articulated in such a way that reassures family members that they're loved, but behavior has to discontinue because of the impact on ability to obtain medicine, pay eating bills, and eat. So it's a very fundamental first step, and a part of the process for mom, for grandmom sometimes, is just self-identifying in this process that I am a victim, and I need and deserve to have this harm treated. So it's a process we all have to engage in, and I hope you've gotten the brochure that we created through the coordinated community response, and we've been working on for quite some time. And I hope you'll encourage your law enforcement to take the self-assessment And if you're interested in developing or being a part of a coordinated community response that's here for the entire county, I hope you'll reach out to me. The number is at the bottom of my overview, and it's certainly incorporated into the brochure. Thank you for giving me time this evening.
Thank you, Arthur. I was looking over part of it, and I had one quick question, and you probably touched on this, as far as the Elder Justice Project and the Vermont Adult Protection Services. How are they different? Which one comes into place first, or how does that work?
Well, Adult Protection Services will do investigations into harm, but their first determination is whether or not the individual is a vulnerable adult. And sometimes that's not the case. There's a lot of confusion. It's not a question of age. Not everyone, when they reach a certain age, would be considered a vulnerable adult. So typically, to be a vulnerable adult, through the APS definition, one would have to live in an assisted living or in a choices for care community placement, or would have to have a need for financial assistance or for assistance on activities of daily life, ADL skills, or an inability to protect themselves from harm. So that's the role that APS plays. It's an instrumental role, but there are gaps. Some people do not fall into those areas, but still need our assistance and guidance. And that is one of the self-assessments that this inventory, the inventory was developed through the National Clearinghouse on Elder Abuse in Later Life. And I disseminated this assessment to almost all of the chiefs of police and state trooper barracks in our county. And I'm hoping that they would be willing to participate. I've had a lot of great feedback from them. And when we get this feedback, we can develop new trainings to assist those areas of weakness. And there are certain, we're working in collaboration with the Attorney General's office and the state's attorney's office, and trying to develop some type of understanding of where there may be weaknesses in the affidavits provided for prosecution. As a trained lawyer, I like to see that understanding made very clear what elements need to be proven and how do they go about establish those in the documents they create.
Thank you, Arthur. I was curious, how else are we trying to get the information out there? I realize this meeting is probably a good avenue for that, but what other areas do you get this information to the people that need it? Or how do you do that?
Well, we've been working with PSAs, public service announcements that will be televised shortly. I'm reaching out to almost all the select boards that I can, very similar to this presentation. We're involved in a lot of community projects so we can disseminate our information. And certainly we get referrals from the Council on Aging, the Senior Solutions. Harold Stamaticus wrote this grant and it was accepted. And there are a number of individuals that play very important roles in providing information to the community. Some I think you may be very familiar with in your community.
Thank you, Arthur. Are there any questions from any board members or anybody in the audience that they would like to ask Mr. Smith? Well, hearing none, go ahead, Lee.
I'd like to say, this is Lee Dakin, how important this is and how I think everyone understands that self-direction from an elder or whomever is being exploited is going to be the biggest hurdle, because as you said, you're going to have things televised here soon, but how do we get the word out to people that it's okay? It's like you say in your brochure, this is not your fault. And, you know, I think people are private, people think this might be normal. People, I mean, you don't have to be demented to be exploited. And I think Senior Solutions in our area has been very responsive But how can we help people be self-reporting? I think we need to give them a sense of safety and in doing these kinds of things. I mean, it's going to take, it's a big job.
Absolutely. And one of the using restorative justice as an educational tool, I think it's sometimes very difficult for people to understand and self-identify as a victim survivor. And so it's a teaching process. When they go through that, or they understand their unwillingness of part of the grandson or the son or the daughter to participate, they come to a better understanding of exactly what's happening and their role as the victim. And it's an educational process. And I think many people are reluctant to see family members in that light. But when it comes to the essentials, heat, medicine, food, sometimes they have to come to that awareness. And one other, I've been networking with the 211. During COVID, they have a session now where you can request a therapist. And sometimes that's the beginning of the discussion, just talking about your feelings and acknowledging them. And it's a long process. And a lot of these calls are not calls that can be taken in a minute or two, but they usually require a lot of time. And it's a skill set that a lot of people have developed through domestic violence, but it may not be the same kind of skill set that you might find elsewhere. I know the Helpline Senior Solutions does a very good job of referring people to certain types of community services. And I think what we need to do is be very aware of how we need to be of assistance to those in later life in our communities. Thank you.
Great. It's developing relationships with community members.
If you have any ideas on what would work in your community as far as outreach, I'd be happy to do a greet and meet. I'd be happy. I did serve chicken. I'm happy to serve it again if you have a senior center where that would work. Most people aren't doing that now, so it makes it very hard.
That's right. I think just having the awareness out there now for all of us who, might visit this site after this meeting and read what we're talking about and what's really important and necessary will help that. But thank you very much for what you're doing.
The other thing that I was potholders, people want to get information on the potholes or in their bag when they're shopping. We don't know the answer to that. People are very suspicious of the unknown.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. And Lee, I just want to echo what you said about that. I mean, anything that we could do to help care for and protect our vulnerable senior citizens as they get into their golden years is definitely a worthy cause and something that we should strive for as a compassionate society. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you for having me.
Arnie?
Yep.
Will the website that has been referenced that's on the brochure that you guys are looking at, will that be in the minutes?
We can put it up on the website.
Yeah. We could on the town website.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
We'll put it up on the town website.
And it's about 2 pages. It's about 2 pages long and has a lot of detailed information and discusses what Arthur had brought up just now. Yep, we could do that.
Thank you.
Sure. Next item on our agenda is the grants and aid approval. And we are applying for through regional planning, I guess it is, Julie, for some work that's going to be done on Hall Road.
So Grants and Aid is a program that is funded through VTrans and the Clean Water Act together, and it's run through and monitored, managed by local regional planning commissions. We have not typically in the past been a part of this program. This program has a lot to do with the hydrologically connected road segments from the Clean Water Program. And so when you agree to take funding for a section of road, you are agreeing to bring that entire road up to the new Clean Water Act standards, which we are not always wanting to do. We don't necessarily agree with a lot of the road changes that they have made, and it doesn't work on all of our roads. On a number of our roads, it will cause more damage. So we have not taken part in this, but this year we do have a road, Hall Road. I'm sorry. Hall Road is up off of Route 11 East, past Arnie Stoddard's old house.
It's first right-hand turn on Route 11 East.
It's
First-
what, maybe
first-
a mile long, if that long? Not even?
First right-hand turn on Route 11
Three-quarters,
East,
maybe.
Lee.
Okay, thank you.
It's not a long section of road. It does need the stone line ditching. It does need culvert replacement and upsizing. There are currently greater berms there that on that particular road, Kirby feels and the guys feel comfortable that those berms could come out and be fine on Hall Road. And it does need some redefining. So this would provide funding for that road. It's a good test road to kind of try some of the new measures that they're asking for. If those measures are not working, then it's a short enough road that, you know, putting those berms back up or whatever would not be the end of the world. So
It's a good road to test.
It's a good
everything out,
road to
see
test
how
on.
the program works.
Yep,
And
yep.
to see how it's going to work once it's done,
Yep.
and does it fit to situations that we have.
Yep.
What's nice about it is it is a shorter road,
Yep.
so it's a lot more, it's feasible for us to do it financially,
Mm-hmm.
because our match in this is only in kind, I assume.
our match is, this is one of those grant programs where in-kind can be your match. So, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it works out and what happens.
Yep, yep. So I just need approval to do that. Either the board chair can sign, or you can authorize me to sign.
So Julie, a couple of questions. I didn't see it in here, and I apologize if I missed it, but what's the total overall cost for that project?
Did I not tell you?
28,325.
It's in the memo. 28,325
Oh, okay.
would be the total project cost.
And then what would the, so we'd have to pay 20% of that?
Our match is in kind. So built into that 28,000 is our labor.
Oh, okay.
And they also reimburse for use of our equipment.
Okay,
So then that ends up being your match.
right, okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So there's no cash out for the town.
Right, okay.
So do we need a motion on this?
Yeah, either to authorize you or authorize me to sign, whatever is your preference.
I would entertain a motion to authorize our town manager to sign a letter of intent to participate in the Municipal Roads Grant and Aid Program regarding Hall Road.
So moved.
Lee Dakin's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff Holden's the second. Any further discussion on this? I think it's going to be a good project to see how it works out, especially about the berms on the road and stuff, because that's a big stipulation that they have on a lot of the roads. In a lot of places, it doesn't make sense, but in this particular case, it does make sense. And plus, the road needs a good upgrade there anyway, so it should work out pretty well. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
All right,
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody? All set? Now it's to authorize you, Julie.
Yes, I'll sign it.
Next item on our agenda is the financial review for the third quarter. And Julie, can you help us out with this? I see that we're doing pretty well financially.
We are
Three
doing,
quarters down we've expended about 65% of our budget so far, which is a pretty good savings. One thing that was interesting is that you said this year's a little different, that we're postponing things and not putting a few things off, which might help contribute to this, the fact that we're at 65%.
yeah. We, and I want to stress that. We are at about 64.5% expended, I think somewhere in there, which is a 10% savings so far, but I do want to stress to people that that doesn't mean that we've been over budgeting all these years. There's a lot of things that are not getting purchased that we need. Department heads have been amazing about doing absolutely the bare necessities this year. We did that right out the gate from the beginning, not sure what tax collections would look like, so everybody kept expenses down as much as possible. The only things we did not cut were the things that were going to just increase our budget next year. So things that could be delayed, we delayed. And I just have to commend all the department heads. They've really done an amazing job. I mean, cutting your budget by 10% is a pretty big accomplishment. There's not a lot of fluff in our budget to begin with. So it's pretty big. Department heads have been very, very creative in accomplishing things and getting things done. So anyway, so our financial report is looking very good. As there are notes on the sides for some of those anomaly things. I don't know if anybody has questions. The best way to go through it.
Are we anticipating, if we keep doing as good as we are, we're gonna have to not do a TAN this year?
Are we going to have to what?
Not do a what is it called, a TAN?
TAN
note?
note.
Tax and
We've already.
We've already done our TAN. So
Yeah, but I mean-
you mean going into next
Right.
year? TAN has everything to do with cash flow. So starting in January, we kind of start over. But we've got to, if we end the year with a pretty good fund balance, then, our TAN certainly could be less. We have changed the way we pay some of our bills, so to improve our cash flow. So I am hoping that next year, that TAN could be reduced and, draw as little as we possibly can.
Or we
on
put
it.
it off in timing when we have to.
And that's
pay
what
it.
we do. It used to be that a bill would come in and it would get paid in the next warrant. Now what we do is we pay net 30. So a bill comes in, it's not paid till 30 days out. So it just helps keep our cash, in our hands for as long as we can. And it's been working. It worked pretty well for us for the first, few months of COVID before we were collecting taxes, so. But yes, Jeff, we very possibly could. I don't think we could go without one because we notoriously draw about 500 or 600 in that January to July timeframe. So I don't know that we could have zero, but we could certainly reduce, which saves interest, obviously.
Yep.
Well, it's good news considering what we were discussing in March and April when the COVID first came about our tax revenue and expenses and everything else. And I really would like to echo what you said about commending our department heads for how they've handled this.
That's all
and what
them.
they've
Yep.
done
Yep.
on keeping the budget where it is and bringing it in like this lower and still getting the job done. It's not like our services are hurting.
Correct.
They're doing everything they're supposed to be doing. They're just being smart, a little smarter about it and just being more aware of things as we go along. And like Julie said, though, there's some things that we're going to have to take care of next year. So it's not like we're going to be able to do this every year, but it's
Yeah,
still.
I can definitely say there's a few things that I wanted to get done this year that have been put off and not getting done, but there was, unfortunately, in my situation, it couldn't have been planned anyway because I had so much unexpected stuff come up with pump stations, control panels and stuff like that, that's where we had to put our time and everything. But there are things that will have to be done next year.
Well, when you look at the water and sewer budgets, they're even down a little further than that.
Yeah.
When I was looking at some of
Yep.
those, they were like
Yep.
41% or.
Water
40.
sewer is at about 40%. There are a couple of purchases that Jeff needed.
Yeah.
Again, that don't show up in this third quarter, that'll
Right.
show up in the fourth. But it's not like all of a sudden now you're blowing 80% of
No,
your
but
budget.
I
I mean,
mean-
it's still going to come in significantly under.
Look, I had to have a pump completely rebuilt. It's like $11,000 thing that's not in this.
Yeah.
But it's something that had to be done,
Yeah.
Well, it's when I saw those numbers like that in the low 40s, and it was like, that was a little startling that it was that low, but I understand it. There's still some things that are
But
coming
as
in.
I've been saying, we're actually short on manpower compared to what we should have. And eventually that's gonna catch up to us.
Yeah. No. Good job to all the department heads, for sure. And I guess, Jeff, when I'm speaking to you in these lines, you're speaking as a department head and not a select person.
No, I mean, as a town citizen that's trying to do the best I can.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody have any questions on the third quarter review? Any concerns or anything? I mean, there's little explanations on anything that pops up, that showed up, that was, looked like an anomaly or something, and it's spelled out. I think you did a great job in having it all explained to us.
Thank you. But if I missed anything or you have anything else.
One thing I will say that's I think's been helpful for this, having department head meetings.
Yeah, every Tuesday.
Where we're all in tune with what the other departments are doing. And lots of times there's things that we can help out the other departments and stuff too. That, I mean, we've started that before in the past, but we never followed through with it. But I think this time it has really made a big difference in everybody keeping up to speed on what's happening all over town, not just in our own departments.
You get the full picture.
Yes.
All the different moving parts, and working together is an important aspect of a town.
Yes.
And it's great to see that. So any questions, any concerns on it? It's hard to have many concerns on it when it's in that great shape and the explanations are all right there. I mean, things can change and things can happen for sure, but it seems like we're heading in the right direction. And that's true of the water fund, the sewer fund, and the general budget that we have.
Yeah, and both of those departments do have some big projects coming up in the
water,
future,
sewer.
near future. So.
Not hearing any other questions and stuff, I think we're okay with our financial review then. And we'll head on to the next agenda item with a health insurance package review. I know we've had this discussion numerous times in the past regarding our health costs for the town and how it works and the benefits that we offer. And there were some questions out there that maybe we should do things different, or at least try to do some research to find out what alternatives were out there and whether we could do anything different. And I know, Julie, you and our insurance agents and Suzanne Swenson have spent a lot of time and a lot of hours looking at all the options and what we have and what we don't have and things that we could do in the future to try to answer a lot of the questions that the board has had over the years. And I think you've done a great job on that also, with the explanations that were given and the costs and the analysis that we have.
Mr. Chairman, for this portion, I'm going to recuse myself and move myself to the audience because of the nature of this.
Okay, thank you, Joe. We are speaking about your benefits, I guess. So one of the big questions that we had was Chester typical as far as providing full benefits for our employees? And it was interesting that of all the towns that they surveyed, 100 and something of them and stuff, 51 of them offered full benefits. And I think it was an important thing to have that option, and for the reasons that you've stated in your report, Julie, and I'll give it to you in a minute, about longevity of keeping employees, attracting employees, and the morale of the employees, and a lot of other related items to that. So, Julie, could you just take us through what you've been working on over the last couple of months, I guess?
Yep, sure. So I've been working on a kind of full assessment of where Chester stands, or where we sit in connection with other government entities. So the very first thing that I looked at was what do we spend currently on our employees, and how does that fit? Is it an appropriate amount? So the first thing I learned, because I went to compare us to the private sector, is not to ever do that. Government and private have no similarities, and there are pages and pages of reasons why there are no similarities between the two. But if we were going to, we would be comparable to a services-based industry. Services-based industry, a good portion of their budget is their staffing, is their labor costs. So I then reached out to Ron to find out how would I make that comparison, how would I do that? And I emailed you guys a letter yesterday that I had received from him He is very confident that Chester sits in a very good position. Local government, and that he does auditing for in Vermont, a few in New Hampshire, in Maine. Many offer this type of a benefit, and those range from 65 upwards to sometimes even 80% of your budget, which is hard for me to grasp, that 80% of a municipal budget could be labor costs.
Labor and benefits.
Labor and benefits. That's just, it seems like such a high number to me. So when he came back with that and said, you know, you guys running at 62, 63% are well below the average of what local government spends. So that was good to know right up front. So the other thing that I compared with the VLCT does a compensation survey, which is a very useful tool. They have 128, I think, reporting towns. And I compared, I took first of all those 51 towns that offer a health insurance benefit comparable to ours, which is basically 100% coverage. And of those 51 towns, isolated them out into a separate group, and then compared things like what other benefits do they offer? You know, do they offer dental? Do they offer vision? We do not have that benefit, but what other packages do they give? And what are their salaries? What is their salary range? Are we well below? Are we above? Where do we fit? So with the exception of a couple of salaries that are a little below the average, for the most part, we are right there. I mean, we have longevity with our employees, so, you know, a fair number of our employees are on the higher end. But even with that higher end, we really are sitting we're sitting below average. So as far as the total package. But knowing that there was still a concern about the benefit in the current times, the culture that we're in, Sil and I spent a lot of time with Suzanne Swanson. We put her through the loops this time, and did all kinds of scenarios. I have a 30-page report from her on all different options that are available. And, you know, really when you look at them all, what we're doing is the cheapest thing to do. If you're going to keep providing 100%, what we're doing is the cheapest thing to do. We are doing the most cost-effective plan. This year, insurance rates are up a little over 20,000. We trend since 2016 to 2020. I know David has talked about this a lot. We're trending at 4%, whereas a lot of other places are trending at 14, 15, 16%. So the plan that we're on is a good plan. And with a total increase of a little over 20,000, I don't know that it's worth removing that benefit. There's a lot to a municipality. Changeover in labor is expensive for any business, but in a government entity, it's very expensive. When you are replacing, you know, plowed truck drivers, you can't replace a truck driver every 2 and 3 years. It takes them 2 years to even really solidly know their route. It's not get in a truck and go plow the road. It's where does that boulder stick out? Where does that tree hang? Where is that ditch line so I don't go in it? Where is, you know, how does Mrs. Joe, whatever, you know, have her rock wall underneath all that snow so I don't hit it? I mean, there's so much to knowing a route and a job. So turnover for us is expensive. Also, when we get younger people starting here, we offer training. You know, a lot of the guys, as they come, we do their CDLs for them, and that's an expense. If you're going to hire somebody and already trained, it's a lot more money. And we have a plan that keeps people here. And I think that's really important. You know, we have longevity, and that is it's a value. So this is a benefit. I mean, we don't have a ton of benefits. We have our health insurance, we have our vacation time. We're required to have retirement, which we all do. That's mandatory. And you know, that's what we have. And employees are happy with that. They're content with that. We understand the value or the cost of health insurance to taxpayers. I have met with employees. We've had lots of conversations as a group. And, you know, I have looked into some alternatives of, if employees were required to start contributing something, I've had some conversations with board members individually about what they might be looking for on that line, and the response given to me has always been it's not really about money, it's more philosophy. And so unless you're really going to sock it to employees and start having a pretty big hit, the programs that are out there for them to contribute, the savings are they're less than $10,000 a year. And I just don't know that financially for the town that is worth kind of disrupting the apple cart. We have a really good thing. I mean, the financial statements show you we have a really good thing here.
So Julie, when you said less than 10,000, that's total, not per employee.
No, that's total. Okay. Unless you want to really get into something big.
Right.
That's kind of what we have. If you take your current plan that we have now and say to employees, okay, we want you to start contributing towards this, there's not a lot of room there. Unless you're going to start saying, you have to pay $5,000 of your deductible. Well, that's $5,000. That's a $5,000 financial hit to an employee.
It's a $5,000 cut in pay.
Exactly.
And the only time I ever saw that happen is when the school did it, when they got the employees to start paying for their health insurance. We had to give them a big jump in pay to cover.
To compensate.
So, okay, we had a $5,000 savings, but they had to increase their payroll by $5,000. And all that did was start a bad relationship between the two organizations, because every year health insurance went up and they wanted to increase it or decrease it with a percentage, and it was a huge arguing point every single year, and it still is to this point. And in those situations, the rates were going up 10, 12, 15% a year. When we have a situation where we're looking at 3.98%, which is just a little bit above inflation, to keep the status quo, why would you want to change it? I mean, that's my personal idea when it comes to what we're doing and how we're doing it. And especially when I look at the numbers that say we're at 62% for labor and benefits, and that's with a senior workforce that is at the higher end of the pay scale. As they start retiring and they start dropping out of the workforce and we hire people at less, that number might even go down. Because not only does the pay go down, their use of the medical aspect of it also goes down.
Well, and that's a good point. That's a good point, Artie, because one thing I should have started with this. One thing that we looked at this year, new to Vermont, relatively new to Vermont, is what they call a self-funded or a level-funded plan. And basically what that does is I forget the name of the insurance company, it escaped me. They're connected with Cigna, comes in and they say your premiums are going to be based on your own pool. Right now our rates for MVP or Blue Cross are based on a large pool of the whole state of Vermont and sometimes beyond that. So you're being compared to people who may not manage their health care well. Whereas a level-funded or a self-funded program comes in and they just compare you. But what the problem is there is it only works if you don't have a lot of at-risk or high-risk employees.
Yeah, it works if you don't use the insurance.
Exactly. So, but the savings, we went through the hoops. Because at first glance, it had a potential of saving, upwards of $95,000 in premiums. But then what we do is all the employees took the time and did a full medical health assessment. Then they take that and it goes through underwriting. And what they found is because a large portion of our staff are over the age of 50, some of us are getting much closer to 50, we use our health insurance. Yeah. If you're a diabetic, you're using your health insurance. You're maxing yourself out each year. If you've got a heart issue, same thing. So because of that, we use our insurance to its capacity. We were too high of a risk for them. But 5, 6, 7 years from now, as you call it, that senior staff starts to retire and they're replaced with a younger generation, we'll look at this again. I would say every 4 or 5 years, we run the numbers again. We just need to keep on it. And this year we've certainly looked at it. If all of a sudden rates just start to skyrocket, then we need to look at other options. But right now, they're just not.
My wish
So-
is 5 or 6 or 7 years that we don't have this discussion ever again, and somehow this country gets their act together, and we all have medical insurance without having to have this debate and this discussion every time. I just don't get it, how it works in this country, but if you turn it into a business, then you do get it. Of course, you can get it cheaper if you're not going to use it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Julie, I have to say that I was very happy to read in your memo, the work that you had done, the clarity with which you explained it, all to me and hopefully others. And I'm just very happy with your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what do you need from us?
I don't think I need anything. You guys don't typically approve the health plan, but just because there has been so much discussion over the last year or two, I wanted to get a general consensus. Are we good with this, or do you need me to do more? How far do you want to push this? It's hard because I am also a beneficiary of this
Sure,
plan,
yeah.
so it's awkward for me to just choose it and move forward, to benefit for myself.
If you recuse yourself in this case, we're in big trouble.
But so I feel more comfortable since there were so many questions and a lot of concerns. Taxpayers had concerns. And so we needed to do due diligence and do the research, so.
Well, from my perspective, Julie, I think you have done an excellent job in preparing us, providing information for us to make a reasonable decision. And I think from what I've read, from what I've heard, and I think that the choice that's been made is a good one.
Okay.
I don't see any reason to change it at this point, especially if the savings would be less than $10,000. It doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint or from a philosophical standpoint to shake things up. So I'm happy with it.
Okay, thank you.
So I would gather that's a general consensus.
Okay, great.
And because we're not philosophically changing our direction or going anywhere else, there is nothing that the board has to do, but thank you for the update.
Perfect.
That was very informative with the numbers and all the details on there. And it's a benefit I think we should keep because I think our employees are worth it in this town.
Thank you.
All the employees.
I will thank you on behalf of all of our employees.
You're very, very fortunate.
We are. We are.
Well, it's our town, don't you know?
What was that, Lee?
I said it's our town, don't you know?
That's right.
Next item is the 2021 general fund budget that's coming up. In your packet, we have a little worksheet that was provided to start a review on these areas that we're going to be discussing, and it was general government, the select board, the town manager, administration, the zoning listers, town hall, and revitalization historic buildings. And basically what we have here is 2020 actual, and because we're going with 2021 zero budgeting, there is no 2020
I'm not giving you
budget. So we're going to have to decide kind of.
Which document are you looking at, Arnie? Because there's 3 of them.
There's a little worksheet that has.
There's several worksheets there.
Do you have one of those?
So is it the general fund balance sheet that we're
No.
looking at
No,
right
it's a
now?
worksheet.
They're these, Lee.
All it has on it is 2020 actual, 2021 budget with notes.
Is it on this one?
Yep. Keep going. Keep going. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Should have been under,
So the actual is only going to be for the 3 quarters, so those numbers are going to be a little off.
This one? No,
But
Yep, keep going, keep going. Is this in order? Keep going.
this is it. Unless you sent it with something else.
No, it should have been in your packet.
So this is what you sent me.
There's way more attachments than that.
Well, there was these up here.
Lee, did you get the budget worksheet in your package?
I did.
Yeah, okay, good.
And then there's,
Where it was in my packet. I mean, I try to keep things in order, but that doesn't always happen. It was right behind our benefit renewal review and analysis. sample.
I found it all by myself.
Oh, good job.
A little help
So-
from Julie.
So you'll see that this is different. Your 2020 actual column is direct from your financial packet that you just reviewed.
And that's just that we're up at three
Just
quarters.
Just through your 3 quarters. Excuse me, I did not give you your 2020 budget because we're supposed to be doing a zero base. I do have a master that as we start looking at things, as department heads give me their budgets, I'm plopping it in there, so I'm kind of keeping a running total. But I thought it could try it this year to do something a little bit different, maybe keep the process a little simpler, I'm hoping, is start reviewing the budget in sections. And so these are the first sections for tonight. November 4th, you're going to hear from the Public Safety Division. Later in November, you're going to hear from the Public Works Division. And you can review their budgets, just their budget, hear their explanations, hear their numbers. Then that second meeting in December, you'll get a consolidated budget because you're going to have heard from everybody. And then we can kind of start seeing how things fall in line together. You can't really make decisions till the end of December because you don't have all your numbers. So it just doesn't make sense. To me, it's very confusing to look at, 15 pages of numbers twice a month. Things get missed. I think it's just easier for me to look them down, break it down a little more. So this is a first round from these departments. Debbie is here to answer questions on admin budget if you have them. I can certainly, and I can address any of the others, but I don't know if you want to just do them one at a time, Arnie, or
Yeah.
do you want to just start with the
Why don't
select
we
board?
just go through them?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, if you start with the select board, and the only reason I see that we had that, there's this note in there, why our expenses were higher than normal was because of the manager's
Right.
search.
Correct.
Other than that, I don't see much changing in there at all.
Right. No.
Town manager, of course, that changed because of the redoing of all the office in
And
general, and your position.
yeah, and one of the things you'll notice here is before Social Security and retirement, Social Security has been in here, but the retirement benefit for the town manager has always been lumped into the administration, where, it really should, any benefit that the town manager has should be lumped in with the town manager's salary. So if somebody wants to know what our town manager is making, they should be able to see that.
Which is, so why that's.
I've
there's a
moved
little
that.
increase 'cause-
That's new. It's new. I've moved it from admin. You'll see the decrease there. So I moved from admin into this budget.
It makes sense.
And then expenses, I am asking to have expenses up a little bit from previous. There are some things that I would like to do for our employees, appreciation type things throughout the year. Small, we're not talking big things, small things. So I would like to be able to have a little bit more money to be able to do some of those types of things. It's not up a lot. And then we've never had a training line for the town manager, and I think you'd benefit if I got trained. So there's some classes.
The fact that you're interested in furthering your education in this field, that's encouraging. Julie.
Well-
That's appreciated.
I'd really like to do, the University of Georgia has an online, and this is the one that Ron, I reached out to Ron about we all know the financial piece is not my biggest strength. So I reached out to Ron and he recommended this course. It's an online thing. You kind of do it at your own. There's 3 sections. It's a governmental accounting. So it's specific to government. There's 1, 2, and then the third part is an asset management training on how to create an asset management plan for the town. So I'd really like to do those 3 sections, and the 3 total is 1,500. They're 500 apiece. So that would be the training that I would be planning probably this year, or 2021 and part of 2022.
When you get to the asset management training part, let myself and Jeff know about it, because we spent some time in
Yes,
some
you did.
courses with it.
I think Lee did a little bit too, yes. Yeah. So that would be what I would be proposing for the town manager budget for 2021.
Any questions or concerns on the first page there?
Nope.
Next one. Next one, license permits and fees. Those are revenues. We don't have that much control over those. Don't see that much.
There's not a lot of change in those
No.
lines. We did drop the revenue for dog licenses just because it was down this year, but Debbie and I have talked about, it seems like every so many years we have to, like, we're not doing a dog census. We just aren't, because that's just a horrific thing to do. But we're going to work on education of people registering their dogs.
And renewing it every year.
And yes,
I'm
exactly.
guilty of it too, so.
So
Yeah.
is this a town thing or a state thing?
It's both. The town gets a portion of that fee, and so does the state.
But is it required?
But it's a
It's
state-
by the
required.
state?
It's required.
So if the state didn't require it, would we?
I guess that's a question for the board.
Well, I'm just wondering what the fees go for.
It's a yearly thing, and maybe.
Right, no, I totally get it. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering what's the purpose for that dog license fee?
Good question.
Well, also, do we still have a day when people could come to a specific place with their animal, their dog, and have the rabies clinic as well as the licensing clinic?
Yes, we do still do that in March. Yeah,
We do,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah.
I know we've done it years ago,
yeah,
but
yeah.
send a bulletin out to put it on town page. Don't forget, this is necessary.
I think the education part of it would help a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe a little nudging now and then after, if it hasn't happened in a year or two, even a reminder or something. Because right now, what's it, once a year, Deb, that works that way?
Yes, they have to be, dogs are supposed to be registered by April 1st of every year, and a portion of the money that goes to the state, which is $5 per dog, is for rabies fund, rabies education.
So part of it goes to the state and town keeps part of it?
Yes.
So what's the
And where-
license fee?
It's $9 for a neutered or spayed dog and $13 if they're not.
Okay.
$5 of each of those goes to the state. On a quarterly basis, we have to send it to the state.
So what expenses are related to the town relative to dog licensing?
Some of those expenses could be through the PD if they pick up a dog and it has to be housed or jailed at the Humane Society.
Jailed.
We've gotten bills from the Humane Society before. If-
And that doesn't go to the
if-
owner?
Well, if the dog doesn't get picked up by the owner
Yeah.
and they end up keeping it, we have gotten bills for housing.
Again, I just question the rationale behind this particular fee. I mean, I totally get it that there are costs associated with us taking care of animals that are caught that aren't leashed or running around, whatever, but just,
If there's
Yeah,
ever
that's
a
part of it, but remember, I don't know if you remember, years ago, we had a rabies kind of epidemic, and what they were doing, the state was taking, it's like bait pieces that had the rabies vaccine in them, and they were airdropping them from helicopters, because the foxes and the skunks and the raccoons, they were all infected badly, so I think that's where that mainly got started,
okay,
to have a fund to take care of them.
yeah.
To protect the domestic animals.
Right.
In case it ever happened
Yep.
again that way.
It's happened a couple times that I remember.
Yeah, it's wow.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Wood.
Thank you. Yeah, I just was curious about that.
So any other questions on well, we're on administration, we have general government. Not much different there, everything's pretty much the same. We get down to expenses on administration. The payroll's up a little bit. Is that because part of that is the 3%, but is it also part of it the way it was restructured, or because of different pays?
So payroll is actually down. You're only comparing, your actual is only through third quarter.
Okay.
So you have a whole nother quarter. Yep.
That's right, I forgot.
Yep,
That's
payroll is down, but this 158 number does, all of these salary lines I've just calculated in a 3%. Not everybody gets a 3% across the board. Everybody gets a 1%. That 1% standard cost of living. And then you're eligible for up to another 3%. Most people don't. I don't think any of us ever get 4 total. But anyway, is based on merit. So that averages around 2%. So it tends to average out to about 3%. So that, all these salary numbers that you'll see will include that. If you want to lower that, that's a board decision, but.
And it was my mistake when I was looking at the actuals that it's only 3/4.
Yeah.
So it's 3/4 of that up, you know.
Yeah, no, that budget will definitely be down when you see it compared to a 2020 budget at the end. Yeah.
So any questions on the second page there? And the last page. Same thing. And some of these, like when you, even though it's the third quarter, like the Pacific Insurance, I mean, that bill's probably come in and paid and done, that's it for the year.
It is, and like on the passive insurance, you're gonna see that in each department, again, other than the co-insurance, all the other insurances, for the most part, unemployment can't, but are broken out by department on the bill, so we're trying to allocate them to the department that they belong to. Co-insurance, I'm lumping all back together because we have departments where there's only one full-time employee, and because of HIPAA, I can't show you what that number is. So instead of doing some for one department but not for the other, all the co-insurance is just gonna go back together under the insurance line, just lumped. It's just easier.
But the other ones are easy.
But everything else is broken
Break
out. Everything. So you're gonna see in some departments where passive was not budgeted in their department previously, but it is now.
Unclassified, is that all COVID related?
All that is COVID related at this time. We only put in 500 for this time. We're not thinking that we're gonna need to expend
I hope so.
a lot more, but there's also tons of grant money and things out there to help offset those expenses, so.
Did we ever hear about that grant, about the COVID?
I'm just waiting on one more bill to come in, and then I'm gonna put all that in for reimbursement, so we'll see.
That reminds me of a question I did have, on the other part there, under workman's comp, it was 40-something thousand. Was that all COVID related as well, or?
Workers' comp?
Yeah, I thought it was workman's comp.
No, there's no COVID through workers' comp.
Okay. I don't remember seeing it that high before.
Where are you, do you know what line you were looking at, Jeff? Was it in admin? No, it couldn't have been admin.
No, I highlighted it, but I'm not finding it now.
Okay.
Thought it was in this page, section.
The only department for workers' comp that would be way, oh, maybe it was on your general fund.
Yes,
Fire and police are our biggest
I
expenditures.
guess it's under the highway,
Oh, highway?
and it says 2020 actual is 41.
41,660.
Yep.
Because normally workers' comp is again lumped together, now we're breaking it out. So normally it's a big number of like 90-something thousand. Now it's being broken down by department.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. Trying to get that good picture of what each department costs the town. Yeah.
Any other questions on the last page of administration? Next one over is listers.
This budget will actually, you'll find will in the end will be up a little bit, not a lot. This line item for NEMRIC, you know, we have one lister now and we're using NEMRIC. This is a guess. This is averaging 10 hours a month, which is about what they've been using. So and right now, coming off a reappraisal, there's a fair amount that Al from Nemrick is having to do. So this is what we're trying to take a guess at for him. But not a lot new there.
No, not much on there. Any questions on the page on listers? Planning and Zoning Department.
The salary on zoning is up. Well, again, you're only comparing to third quarter, but it will be up. Again, this is with the new ZA in at 20 hours.
This is the extra.
This is the extra time, yeah.
But I
And I also, sorry, Ernie,
No,
I also gave a little bit of money to, I increased the legal line because and have a big spelling error in there, but increased the legal line, expecting that with the new zoning administrator, one of the reasons we increased those hours was to have increased enforcement. So with that increased enforcement is going to come more attorney work. So that line is up. And then there's also some money in that we added a contracted services line. It was named something else, but and it's to help, and they have a lot of work to do on the bylaws, and they're going to need some external assistance, probably from regional planning, for some of the work that they're doing. So we need to give them a little bit of money to have that as a resource with the amount of work that's having to go into these bylaws. So I want to be able to give them a little bit of money. And then a new ZA is going to need some training, and I'd like to be able to do some more training for the Planning Commission and the DRB.
Great. Questions, concerns?
That's a good start.
Very good start, and also easy to follow.
And on to revitalization in our historic buildings.
So this may be one that you, as we move along in the budget process, you want to take some things out of. There's some new things here. I'm just proposing them. So website, we've moved completely to here. We had it in 2 different spots in the budget. It's all under here now. And it's upped a little bit because of the marketing initiative, assuming that we're going to have, this is for somebody, Lauren Ingersoll is the one who's doing the work, to do specific Google ad placements and Facebook ads as part of the marketing strategy. So it would be some increased hours there. Historic facility line is up a smidge. Remember the repairs to the Academy building roof, the Academy building ceiling, that plaster repair. And 10,000 of the match if we get the grant for the Academy roof. 20 of that was coming from the grant fund, 10 from here.
Julie, can I just back up again to the website maintenance? Did you say that includes advertising? Or that $2,000 just is for the maintenance, but not advertising?
That's going to include some of the advertising.
Okay.
Some of that those Facebook ads and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's why that's up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And then miscellaneous maintenance, some of the things that we need to do, that I know we need to do, is painting of the gazebo on the green. And there's some repairs to the Academy building ramp. That ramp has got some rotten boards and needs to be restained. And then there's always little things that come up over there that need to be done. So 10 is what I shouldn't be telling you this. 10 is what we had last year, but we're leaving it the same. And then, again, landscaping, we didn't expend this money. This is one of the things that we just didn't spend money on this year. But we've had that in the budget a couple years now remember we did the canopy management plan a few years ago. This was to start removing some of the dead trees on town property. And starting some of that canopy work ourselves. I just left it the same,
Is any of it related to the ash trees, the emerald ash borer?
That's certainly something we could use this money for. We need to circle back around to that. That whole project got stalled because of COVID. And one of the things that Kirby's done a couple trainings on it before COVID. And we need to start establishing an inventory of
That's the main thing.
ash.
That's the first
Yeah, that's the first. We've got to get that inventory established within the town right away, and we have a lot of miles of town right away. So, you know, this is certainly could be something that contributes towards that, absolutely. Yep. Then for kind of the new things, so Springfield Regional Development Corporation, we do 10,000 a year. That was always in the zoning budget.
In the zoning?
It was always in planning and zoning. So I pulled it from planning and zoning and moved it over here. And then I just threw in some more money for marketing efforts. Again, that's if you guys decide that next year you want to fund more marketing initiatives, it's in there. And then, oh, I did not get my grant. I did not get my grant. They told me no. I don't like to be told no. For the acoustic panels and the whole, that big fancy sound system, I didn't get it. We are not, we're not already established as a performance place. Basically, you need to start having performances, and then they'll give you money to have
So
performances.
we have a performance that nobody can hear, and then.
There you go.
go.
So
What comes first?
Right.
Thanks for the help, guys. Appreciate it.
So the acoustic panels were about 12,000. That really is the big piece of that that's needed. We have this other sound system coming that will certainly tide us over, but the acoustic panels were 12. So I was hoping, I put them in the budget, although if you want to go ahead and do them, you have money in 2020's budget that we could spend 12 on. It's not budgeted, but you certainly have money to play with if you guys want to, I mean, that's up to you. I'll leave that to you.
Something we could look at as we get
The nice
closer
thing
to
in
the end
having
of the
these
year.
worksheets is if we can discuss that, we are going in that space.
At least it keeps us some options out there, whether we go that route or not, we
Yeah.
know we can.
Yeah, you could do it
Well,
now, or you could budget it. Yeah.
The point is that sitting here in this room right now, doing what we're doing, it's very difficult for me to hear.
Exactly.
And I think not having those acoustical panels is detrimental to having meetings here. So I think we should start exploring that sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
especially if we have funds.
Well, and you know, I don't know, if you guys have, I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there because it just popped in my head, but we have Atomic Sound coming to set up this portable sound system in several weeks. I mean, if you want to authorize spending another 12,000, they can do the acoustic panels maybe when they're here.
Well, to even do that, it would have to be an agenda item, I would think.
Exactly, but it's something you can think about.
Sure.
I could put it on the next agenda and you could,
We could talk about it for sure.
Yeah.
See what we said. And I'm glad you said that about not being able to hear anything, because I
very-
can't hear anything, but
Well,
I usually
yeah.
think it's because of my deteriorated hearing, but this room is tough.
The acoustics stink. yeah.
It's really tough.
The acoustic panels are going to help you, Ronnie.
Thank you.
yeah.
You heard that?
Wow, tough audience.
Thank you, Lee.
So anyways, there's certainly play within this budget and some line items, but trying to make this maybe more, not just revitalization, but, you know, marketing is part of that. You know, numbers to be played with later on, probably, you know, there's
It
room
makes
there.
sense where you took them out of, like, especially out of the zoning thing, and how that ever was there. It
Yeah.
made no sense at all.
Yep.
It kind of fits along with what these items are.
And then the last one for tonight is the town hall budget. Pretty standard. I mean, you know, we overexpended on repairs and maintenance because we had that septic, another spelling mistake. We had that septic line backup downstairs in the basement that put us over. The one item that is going to be pretty different this year is a cleaning service. We went out to bid, got a few numbers on actually having a cleaning service that cleans downstairs and up here. Debbie, she just doesn't have time anymore to do it after hours. Things are just too busy.
So is that once a week service? How does that work?
So they clean downstairs once a week on Tuesday nights. They clean all of downstairs and the kitchen and the upstairs bathroom. And then once a month, she will clean up here. This, you know, sweep, mop this area, windowsills, that type of thing. And she's already started. We're so happy.
Is it a local?
It is a local lady, yes. We had a couple of bids. We went and got a couple of different costs. They were pretty close. We went with the lowest bid, and yes, it is a local lady, Renata Sawyer, who is doing it, so, yeah.
So I have a totally unrelated question to this, but I noticed that the conduit for the underground wires that go from the pole into the building is cracked at the base, and it seems to be a safety hazard.
Where?
Right out on this pole, right at the corner of the building.
Uh-huh.
So this conduit that comes from the transformer on the top of the pole comes down, and it's broken right at the bottom. So you can see the wires. Somebody must have crashed into it with something. And so it's been that way for a month, and it's the first opportunity.
Is that the town's responsibility?
Well, I don't know.
No, I got a call Green Mountain Power.
Well, it might be the town, because the town might own that conduit and wire that comes into the building. My guess is that the Green Mountain Power owns the transformer, but anything beyond that is the town's responsibility. But
Okay.
call Greg Heaton.
I'll
or
get
somebody.
ahold of Greg, yeah. I'll
We
get a-
may want to make sure we put a ballard in there to protect it after we get it repaired, so it doesn't happen again. You know, a big post.
Yeah, it's on the wrong side of the pole. It's on the street side of the pole instead of the inside of the pole. So it's just bad design, period.
Yeah.
But,
Is that
It
something
needs-
they could change if we had to fix it? I mean, if we're
well, it
fixing
goes
it
right
anyway?
into the ground, so you'd have to dig up a bunch of
Oh,
stuff.
okay, all right,
So,
okay. So just need a ball. I'll get a hold of Greg Heaton tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
The stairway lights.
So anything else on the budget worksheet for the town hall? Any other questions, concerns?
So this is, one thought you guys can be thinking about. This is very similar to what I am thinking about putting in the town report. You would have 2020, I'm thinking about not even putting in 2020 budget, just leaving it 2019 actual, 2020 actual, 2021 budget. Unless you want me to put in 2020 budgets in the end. But this just, it'll be cleaned up, obviously, but the notes I think are helpful for people to understand what's in that line.
I think so.
I think definitely.
Just-
These kind of worksheets are wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, just do spell check, that's all.
Yeah, I know. As I'm reading through here, I'm like, oh, that's spelled right. Oh, that's spelled right.
Well, you gotta watch that even sometimes, changing your words that it's not the word you want.
Exactly. Oh. Anyway.
So, no more budgets, we're just going. Don't have to explain anything. So we're all set with the 2021 general fund budget. I think the process is, it's helpful the way it's like this.
We'll see how it goes, as you progress and
We'll see what happens with the next departments, or
Yeah.
the fire, police, or,
all public safety. So fire, police, ambulance will be here at the next meeting.
okay?
Yeah.
And it'll be pretty much the same
It's,
process.
you're gonna, each one is gonna be broken down. These worksheets are exactly what we're given to the department heads for them to fill in and build their budget. And then we've had conversations as each one are bringing them in. We've been talking through their budgets and what we think and putting them into this worksheet. And so, yeah, you'll get that same thing for all of them.
Great. Next item on the agenda is the Palmer Bridge loan document. I know we had a little discussion about this at our last meeting on how we were going to address this loan that's coming up and whether we're going to possibly, if it does happen, surplus at the end of the year, maybe pay it off, but we decided to take the loan out anyways to keep that option open at the end of the year on whether we pay it off or we just keep it as a loan. So basically, it's just a formality at this point. We're going to take it out as a loan for, I guess it's for 4 years.
It's a 4-year loan, first payment
$25,000
starting
a year.
next year. 2.3% interest, I believe.
So we're going to do it the way we had originally planned, but towards the end of the year, when we get further into our budget and we know if there is a surplus or not or whatever, we have an option of maybe revisiting this, maybe paying it off, maybe not, or whatever. At least it'll keep the options open and stuff, but it'll put this in place to have it in case this is the route that we go. So do we need a motion on this?
You'll need motions. You got multiple, remember you got the multiple documents there.
So we need a motion to accept the Town of Chester capital improvement note to the tune of $96,000 and authorize the board chair and treasurer to sign it. $96,000, and it's with People's United Bank in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
So moved.
I'll second it.
So Lee Gustafson's the motion, Jeff Holden's the second. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor of approving that notion? Notion, huh? Now it's just that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I already need spell check too.
I need more than that. This is the actual document.
That's the original. Yep.
The next item we need is the Town of Chester resolution for capital improvement borrowing. And it is for that note that we just discussed at $96,000 with People's United out of Bridgeport.
So
And
moved.
Same thing, board chair and treasurer signing on it, authorizing them.
So moved.
Second it.
Lee's the motion, Jeff's the second. Any discussion on it? It's three different documents.
Yeah, there's another
to the
one coming,
thing.
yeah.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Lee and Jeff.
And the last one is regarding the same document, Town of Chester non-arbitrage certificate regarding capital improvement borrowing, People's United, $96,000.
So moved.
Second it.
And authorizing the board chair and treasurer on this one also. Lee Gustafson's the motion and Jeff Holden's the second. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Lee. Thank you, everyone. And future agenda items and new business. Suggestions?
I was wondering if we will be able to put something on there about the appeal that we have with the for the gravel pit.
I think as that comes up, right now, the attorney is working on it, and we don't have any more new information at this point, but I think when it does, we'll have it.
Right, and then perhaps we know by the next meeting, and that be on the agenda.
Sure.
I know they had their first conversation today.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I know that communication has started. They can't technically start negotiation until the court sets the first status conference. And I believe they're expecting that to be sometime next week. But I do know they had a preliminary conversation today, so I know that that's in the works.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
I have nothing.
You will have, I have started conversations today again with Ron about your reserve fund policy. So him and I are going to work up a draft. As you recall, a couple years ago, the voters approved a fund, just didn't appropriate money to the fund because they didn't like the policy. So Ron's going to kind of send over a draft. We're going to work through that, and I hopefully will have that to you. Probably your second meeting in November, be more realistic. But.
Well, if things work out this year and there actually is a surplus, it might be good to have it in place in case we want to delegate some money towards that fund or not. At least to get it in place one way or another, whether we use it or not. So
Yeah.
that'd be important. Anything else? Anybody else?
Well, I was just, the dog ordinance, we're thinking about updating. Has that gone to Jim Carroll?
Yes, I'm waiting on Jim.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting. Yeah.
All right. Hearing nothing else for future agenda items, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, that was
Sorry,
quick
Lee.
on that one, guys. Lee is the motion and Lee is the second. That makes it easy. All those in favor?